Whenever you're ready, Cassie, you may begin.
Imagine your pets. Imagine your dogs and cats, fish, whatever pet you have. They're like a part of your family, aren't they? Now imagine those animals being tortured and slaughtered, all because of some companies who want to make money. That's absolutely heartbreaking. That is why I stand with the resolution that says animals should not be used for commercial testing. I would first like to define commercial. According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, commercial means occupied with or engaged in commerce or work intended for commerce. There are other methods of testing available to act as substitutes for animals. Methods such as 3D printing and stem cell testing are available. Stem cell testing uses adult stem cells that can grow into cells, form the human body's organs, and test substances on them. 3D printing can also produce skin tissue, providing an easy and convenient substitute for animal testing. These methods are often less costly and more effective than tests on animals. Animals' differences in anatomy and bodily functions can make the results of tests unreliable when the product reaches humans. According to NAVS.org, penicillin was ineffective at treating infected rabbits, yet later it was proved safe and effective in treating bacterial infections found in most humans. That is just one of the medications we still use today that was found ineffective by animal testing. The money spent on animal testing is often wasted. The animals used in testing must be bought, housed, and fed. Those costs alone are extravagant, especially when animals are kept for 5 or 6 years. That doesn't even cover the testing costs. Alternate methods do not require the cost of living, and they can produce results quicker than animals can. Evolution, molecular biology, and genetics show that animals and humans differ in profoundly important ways. Animal models will never be able to accurately replicate what happens in the human condition. People in general have longer life expectancies than most non-human species, metabolize substances differently, and are exposed to a multitude of different environmental factors over our lifetimes. So, we are really different than animals. And besides that, animal testing is cruel and painful for the animals. Every year in the U.S., over 25 million animals are used in biomedical experimentation, product and cosmetic testing, and science education. This includes dogs, cats, ferrets, rabbits, pigs, sheep, monkeys, chimpanzees, and more. These animals are kept in cages with minimal entertainment, attention, or interaction with other animals. They are also exposed to chemicals, drugs, and diseases that can cause pain, illness, and death. They are restrained for long periods of time while they are tested. They can be drowned or exposed to electric shocks for behavioral experiments. Oftentimes, they display signs of stress-induced psychosis, which means that animals have hallucinations, anxiety, depression, and difficulty functioning. When animals can no longer be used for the testing, they can be killed in gas chambers for breaking of their neck or decapitation. These methods of killing seem awfully inhumane. After all of the pain these animals had to go through, they even had to endure an excruciating death. I am now open to cross-examination.
Can you give me just 2 examples of how animals are tortured during animal testing?
Right. According to News.org, animals are subjected to experiments that can include everything from testing new drugs to infecting with diseases, poisoning for toxicity testing, burning skin, causing brain damage, implanting electrodes in the brain, maiming, blinding, and other painful and invasive procedures.
You brought up the whole idea of 3D printing, as in recreating similar organ systems, correct?
Yes.
Do you have proof to prove that these tests will be as accurate as a regular circulatory system?
No.
And you said that the money is wasted, as in given to given to people to do the research on animal testing, how is it wasted outside of the product, outside of the buying the animals and like housing and keeping them? Like, are we wasting the money in finding cures, or is it just not worth our time?
It's, there are other methods available that are far cheaper. I have a chart here.
I don't need them at this moment. I appreciate that. What is the test subject that we use as animals? And like, are we using mammals or reptiles or amphibians?
We are using, like I said, the dogs, cats, ferrets,
So
pigs.
mammals.
Yeah.
And are humans and animals exposed to similar things or like everyday situations that you were saying that you were saying humans were exposed to different things or react to different things differently than animals, but would you say that animals are living in the same exact world that we are, so wouldn't you say they're simply exposed to the same exact situations that we are?
They don't do things like drive cars or take medications for diseases and such.
Okay. We'll get process to it. Prep time.
Nope.
That's what I didn't need you anymore. Well, I was checking because I have it all written out. I was just curious if I did or not. I didn't mean that to sound bad.
It's okay, I got what you meant.
Okay. Alright. I need. Animal testing for commercial use is a necessity. Animal testing has led to many cures and treatments needed for survival. The California Biomedical Research Association states that nearly every medical breakthrough in the last 100 years has resulted from animal testing. An example is that an experiment in which dogs had their pancreases removed led to the discovery of insulin, which is a necessity for diabetics. Another example is the polio vaccine, which was tested on animals, and it reduced the global occurrence from the disease from 350,000 cases in 1988 to 223 in 2012. The director of the University of Texas MD, Chris Abbey, stated that we wouldn't have a vaccine for hepatitis B without chimpanzees, and say that chimps are currently our best hope for hepatitis C, a cure for hepatitis C, which kills over 15,000 people in the United States alone. Animal testing has also helped in the fields of breast cancer, brain injury, childhood leukemia, cystic fibrosis, malaria, multiple sclerosis, tuberculosis, and many others. It also helped with the development of pacemakers and cardiac valve substitutes and anesthetics. And after all these discoveries, we will not be able to find a sufficient replacement. Studying cell cultures in a petri dish, while sometimes useful, does not provide the opportunity to study interrelated processes occurring in the central nervous system, endocrine system, and the immune system. Evaluating a drug for side effects requires a living circulatory system. Also, the conditions such as blindness and high blood pressure cannot be studied in these in like tissue cultures or like the 3D printer like outcome type things. Animals are the appropriate test subjects. Chimpanzees share 99% of the DNA with humans, and mice share 98%. All mammals share similar ancestors, or the same ancestor, leading to the same genetic makeup. Also, humans themselves benefit from the results of animal testing, or animals themselves. If vaccines were not tested on animals, millions of animals would have died from rabies, distemper, feline leukemia, infectious hepatitis virus, tetanus, anthrax, and canine parvovirus. Treatments for animals developed using animal testing includes pacemakers for heart disease and remedies for glaucoma and hip dysplasia. Animal testing has also been instrumental in saving species from extinction, including the black-footed ferret, California condor, and the tamarind of Brazil, and many more. The American Veterinary Medical Association supports animal testing. Also, animal research is highly regulated with laws, so we can prevent like the abuse of it, but in place to protect animals from the mistreatment. So in addition to the local and state laws and guidelines, animals research has been regulated by the Federal Animal Welfare Act since 1966. The AWA requires regular inspections by veterinarians. All proposals to use animals for research must be approved by an institutional animal care and use committee. Humane treatment is enforced by the Association for the Assessment and Accreditation for Laboratory Animal Care. All institutions receiving funding from the U.S. Public Health Service must comply with the PHS policy on humane care and use of laboratory animals. Now open for process.
Can you explain how, you said something about how animal testing had saved species from extinction?
What do you want to know about it?
Can you explain how that helped, how animal testing helped?
So let's say so when you have invasive species, they could obviously bring like diseases or such, and so if it's a disease that, say, one animal type is not used to or cannot handle within the system, they can go through and study these endangered species and then find a cure that can fight against these diseases that their own body cannot.
Do you agree with the fact that that as humans, our genetic makeups are different than animals?
And I do not agree with that.
Okay. Can you prove we have a common ancestor?
Well, obviously there's multiple different ways to look at it, and I don't want to make this a religious debate. But we have the religious aspect and the evolution aspect, and if you really look at the evolution aspect, that's where we all have the similar ancestor, which all animals and even all mammals that are from the same ancestor all have the same genetic makeup.
I'm done.
I'm making a note to myself.
So, as the negative has brought up, the animal testing has led to many cures. However, animal testing isn't foolproof because I have read this evidence that has said that penicillin was found ineffective, and there have been multiple other medications that have been found ineffective by animal testing but have been proven to work in humans. So while animal testing may have led to cures, imagine how many other medicines we might have found with the new methods of testing. The negative also says that every breakthrough has, in the past 100 years, has come from animal testing, and that is never mind. But I would also like to bring up the practicalities of this. There's no really practical reason for this when we have other suitable methods of testing to spend millions of dollars testing drugs when we have 3D printing and cell testing that have been proven to work perfectly fine. And I am done with my rebuttal.
Alright, so the affirmative brought up again the idea of the animal test of the penicillin failing with the animal species, but then working with the human species. But then obviously it took the animal testing in order for the doctors to or the scientists to tweak whatever wasn't working with the animals in order to get to work for the humans. So in the end, it's still the animal was still like a liable reason that why we got the penicillin to work in humans. So, and also they brought up that we don't, that with the, there's alternate ways of testing rather than using animals, which was the idea of the 3D printer and like recreating the whole organ system and such. But it's not really you cannot say it's a liable system because every single human system is working in a different way. And if you use a 3D printer, you can only account for one specific specific outcome. But then again, we have to find a drug that can work in multiple different situations, whereas every human body can work in a different situation, but still have the same genetic makeup, but it can still work in a different way. So in that situation, we don't really have any other test subjects outside of animals unless you want to use humans, which I don't see anyone volunteering anytime soon to take drugs unless they're getting paid for it. But at the same time, the other argument is we're spending too much money on animals as it is, but I'm pretty sure it would take more to buy humans. But with the animals, it's an accurate outcome because, like I said, they're mammals that we're using anyway. So we're using chimpanzees, dogs, cats, rabbits, such on mice. They all have this similar genetic makeup because they're all mammals, of course. We all have the same thing. So they all have a heart, a liver, the lungs, and the organs, the intestines, such. So they're all having these similar outcomes, and they're all introduced to the same things that humans are themselves. They breathe the same air, they live in similar habitats, so it's like what they're introduced to and exposed to is very similar to us. So what they're treating in return is the same thing. For example, with dogs, they developed, for actual dogs, they developed pacemakers and such. The same thing that they in return developed for humans, so it's a two-way street. They're kind of fitting both ways. Also, with the whole argument of like losing too many animals, killing too many animals with animal testing, we in return for every pig that we test with animal research, for every one pig that we test, we consume 1,800, and for every one chicken that we test, we consume 340 chickens. And that will finish my rebuttal.
Just a minute.
So, the negative brought up the fact that animals and humans live in similar habitats. We may breathe the same air, but animals don't eat what we do. They don't smoke, they don't drink, they don't do drugs. I don't call that a similar habitat. And the failure rate for animal testing is extremely high. At least when we're eating food, like you said, it's being put to use, and we're giving energy to our bodies. But with the extremely high failure rate of 92% of drugs approved for testing in humans have failed. That's a 92% failure rate of drugs that don't work when they were tested on animals but used in humans. So that's a very large waste of animal life, in my opinion.